Quick note before we start. Everything you're about to hear is commentary, interpretation, and entertainment based on publicly available reports, online chatter, and viewer opinions. Nothing here is confirmed unless we say it is, so please do your own verification, keep the comments respectful, and remember we don't condone harassment toward anyone mentioned. Now, let's talk. They warned her. The fans warned her. The blogs warned her. The charts have been warning her for 2 whole years. And this week, she finally did the one thing no artist ever comes back from. She didn't clap back at a hater. She didn't clap back at a rival. She got on that camera, looked dead into the lens, and cursed out the very people who pay her bills. The very people who bought the tour tickets. The very people who defended her name in comment sections she has never once read. And when she was done, she blamed it on a breakup. A breakup. Baby, the Titanic blamed the iceberg too, and we all saw how that ended. So the question everybody is whispering in the group chats right now is not whether Cardi B snapped, because she absolutely snapped. The question is whether this is the exact moment the empire officially started to crumble. Because insiders are saying the budget is drying up, the features are flopping, the tour money is spent, and the one rivalry that kept her name hot for a decade has gone silent. And if that's true, what we just watched was not a rant. It was a distress signal. And by the time this video is over, you're going to understand exactly why people who have followed this situation for years are saying this will not end well. Now, before we even get into the rant itself, you have to understand the setup, because the setup is where the whole story lives. For months, and I mean months, Cardi B stood in front of her fan base and made promises. She promised new music. She promised she was getting back in the booth. She promised overseas tour dates, a full rollout, a new era. Fans took those promises to the bank. Some of them literally did. Tickets, flights, childcare, money they did not have. All because she told them the show was coming. And what did they get in return? Silence. Excuses. And now, insults. Because this week, when fans started asking reasonable questions, where is the album? Where are the dates? Where is the artist we paid for? Cardi B did not respond with an update. She did not respond with gratitude. She responded with a full-blown verbal assault on her own supporters, and somewhere in the middle of it, she offered up the excuse that has the entire internet doing a double take. She said she's been going through a breakup. That's the official explanation for an album years late and tour money gone. Not a health issue. Not a label dispute. A breakup. And listen, heartbreak is real, and nobody with a soul would mock a woman going through it. But here is where the sympathy runs out and the math begins. Because while she was reportedly too heartbroken to step inside a studio, she was apparently not too heartbroken to be photographed inside the clubs. The studio was too heavy to walk into, but the VIP section somehow wasn't. Fans noticed. They always notice. And that gap between what she says and what she does is the entire engine of this story. She also said she wants to focus on her businesses and focus on living her life. And that sounds beautiful. That sounds like a magazine quote. But the people who funded that life would like to know when living her life started meaning never doing the job they paid her to do. Because a music career is not a decorative fountain you install in the backyard of your fame. It is a machine, and the machine requires feeding. And Cardi B has not fed the machine in a very long time, but she has absolutely kept collecting from it. Here's the part that really sent people over the edge, though. In the middle of everything, Cardi B admitted, out loud, on camera, in her own words, that she never even wanted to go record. The exact sentiment was, y'all think I want to go to Miami to record for y'all? No, I don't. Read that back slowly. An artist whose entire fortune was built by listeners told them their support is an inconvenience. Fans have spent years insisting she loves them. And in one sentence, she told them the studio sessions that would repay their loyalty feel like a punishment. That is not a slip of the tongue. That is a confession. And this is where the pattern stops being a bad week and starts being a business model, because this is not the first time she has turned on her own base. Go back through the timeline. Every few months, like clockwork, there is another rant, another live stream, another meltdown aimed at the people who defend her hardest. It has become a quarterly tradition at this point. The fans take it. They excuse it. They blame the blogs. They blame the haters. They blame each other. And then they go right back to laying their lives down in her mentions. And the rest of the internet watches this cycle the way you watch a friend in a relationship you can't save them from. But let's be fair and ask the harder question. Why is the pressure getting to her now, of all times? She survived worse headlines, lawsuits, feuds, leaked everything. So why are a few months of fan questions sending her into a tailspin? Because the floor underneath the career is quietly disappearing, and she knows it. And this is the part of the story most channels are too scared to say out loud. So let's say it plainly. For the better part of 10 years, Cardi B has had a secret weapon that no marketing budget can buy, a rivalry. The back and forth with Nicki Minaj was not just gossip column fuel, it was oxygen. Every subliminal, every shade, every fan war kept both names circulating in the algorithm like a two-engine plane. Whenever Cardi B's music went quiet, the feud made noise for her. Whenever the charts cooled off, the Barbs and the Bardi Gang kept the temperature up. Love it or hate it, that rivalry was the most reliable rollout strategy Cardi B ever had, and she didn't even have to pay for it. But look around now. Nicki Minaj is quiet, minding her business, announcing what she wants to announce, touring on her own schedule, cashing her own checks. She is not engaging. She is not responding. She is not feeding the machine. And without that friction, the internet is seeing Cardi B clearly for the very first time. No feud to hide behind. No rival to trend against. Just the music, the work ethic, and the results. And the results, baby, are doing a lot of talking right now, and none of it is flattering. Because here is what the numbers people keep pointing out. When the rivalry went cold, so did the momentum. The singles that were supposed to dominate the summer barely made a ripple. The features that used to be guaranteed playlist smashes started charting like they were embarrassed to be there. And the rollout for the long-promised second album has been pushed, delayed, teased, and re-teased so many times that even the most loyal fans have started keeping receipts with dates on them. There is an entire genre of comment now that is just fans posting her old promises next to the calendar year. That is not hate. That is arithmetic. And let's talk about those features for a second, because this is where the strategy starts looking desperate. Word is Cardi B has been leaning back on the old playbook, hopping on other people's records, grabbing remixes, attaching her name to whoever has motion at the moment. There's talk of a collaboration with Cash Doll floating around, another one of those let's see if this sticks moves. And to be clear, there was a time when that playbook printed money. Back in the Offset era, a Cardi B feature was an event. Radio had to spin it, playlists had to place it, the blogs had to cover it. But that was when her name itself was the story. Now the features feel less like victory laps and more like CPR. And CPR only works if the patient wants to live. The label situation makes it even darker. Multiple voices online. And remember, this is reported chatter, not confirmed fact, are saying the record company's patience is wearing thin. The kind of budgets that used to fund Cardi B's videos, her styling, her radio pushes, her playlist placements, are reportedly not what they were. Labels are businesses, and businesses follow returns. When an artist spends years promising product and delivering controversy instead, the accountants eventually get a vote. And the accountants don't care about nostalgia. They look at recoupable spend versus actual return, and according to the whispers, that spreadsheet is looking ugly. And this is exactly why the fan rant hit different. It didn't land in a vacuum. It landed on top of empty tour dates, an absent album, cooling features, and a budget rumor mill working overtime. Fans weren't just insulted. They were insulted at the precise moment they were already doing the math. That's why this one is sticking. That's why even neutral observers who don't care about rap beef are looking at this week and saying, hold on, something is actually wrong here. Now, let me tell you what makes Cardi B's position even more precarious. And it's something the industry learned the hard way over the last few years. Today is the easiest era in history to stay relevant. Think about it. An artist can go viral off a 15-second clip. A random sound can carry a career for 6 months. People have built entire fan bases off a spoon hitting a pot if the algorithm liked the rhythm. The barrier to entry has never been lower, the tools have never been cheaper, and attention has never been easier to rent. Which means if you are a global superstar with unlimited resources, a household name, and a decade of goodwill, and you still can't put a project out, the problem is not the market. The problem is the artist. That's the uncomfortable conclusion people are circling. In an era where literally anything can sell, Cardi B is not selling. In an era where consistency is free, Cardi B cannot stay consistent. And instead of closing that gap with work, the gap is being closed with excuses, the breakup, the kids, the businesses, the pressure, the fans asking too much. There's always a reason, and the reason is never the studio. And before anyone says this is piling on, let's be honest about the standard Cardi B set for herself. Nobody forced her to promise the album. Nobody forced her to announce tours. Nobody made her swear she was getting back in the booth. She set the bar, she sold the tickets against that bar, and then she acted offended when people measured her against it. That's not the fans being toxic. That's the fans being customers. Now here's where the story goes from career trouble to something stranger, because running parallel to all of this is a second pattern, the choreography. Watch closely enough and a rhythm emerges in how she moves when the noise gets too loud. When the headlines turn sour, a new headline miraculously appears. A sighting here. A conveniently photographed outing there. an alleged argument with a partner that just happens to unfold in front of cameras, and the detail that has internet detectives zooming in frame by frame. In so many of these so-called candid paparazzi moments, Cardi B appears to know exactly where the lens is. There's often a beat, a glance, a pause, where she looks directly at the person filming, allegedly, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Think about what that implies if it's true. It means the narrative is not happening to her. It is being scheduled by her. And that reframes everything, including this rant. Because what if the meltdown wasn't a meltdown? What if it was a content drop? What if, in an era where the music won't make noise on its own, the controversy has become the product? That's the theory gaining traction, and honestly, the timeline supports it. Every time the conversation goes quiet, something loud happens. A rant, a feud flare-up, a relationship twist. It's almost like there's a release schedule, just not for music. And that, right there, is the heartbreak at the center of this whole thing, because Cardi B was not supposed to need gimmicks. Say what you want about her journey, the woman had a real moment. Bodak Yellow wasn't manufactured hype. That record was a cultural event. Even her critics will admit there was a window where she could have built something permanent. But somewhere between the fame arriving and the work being due, the music became the least interesting part of the Cardi B experience. And now we're watching the bill come due on that decision in real time. Let's also address the comparison everyone tiptoes around, because it explains why the rant strategy is failing. Look at how Nicki Minaj treats her fan base. Say whatever you want about Nicki. The barbs are not getting cursed out every quarter. She delivers, they support, the cycle continues. That's the actual blueprint for longevity in this business. Not perfection, consistency. Not vibes, output. The artists who last are the ones who understood that fans are not an audience to be managed. They're shareholders. And Cardi B is out here cursing out her shareholders while the stock is falling. Meanwhile, the fan base itself is fracturing. And that might be the most dangerous development of all. Scroll the comments under any Cardi B topic right now, and you'll see something that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. Bardi Gang members arguing with each other. The loyalists accusing the doubters of being fake fans. The doubters posting receipt threads. Former diehards writing those long, sad, I defended her for years, but I'm done posts. That is the sound of a fan base in late-stage decline. Not anger, exhaustion. Anger means they still care. Exhaustion means they've started grieving. And here's a brutal truth the remaining fans don't want to hear. Their defense strategy is actually accelerating the problem. Every time they swarm a critic, every time they mass report a commentary channel, every time they trend a defensive hashtag, they teach Cardi B that the current approach is working. They are cushioning a fall that needs to happen. Because sometimes the only thing that saves an artist is the floor. Sometimes you have to hit it to remember why you climbed. And right now, the fans are holding a net under someone who is actively telling them she doesn't want to perform. That is not loyalty anymore. That's enablement with a Stan account. There's also the personal layer, and people are whispering about it more openly now. Cardi B has 4 children, a very public romantic history, and a pattern of relationships that generate more headlines than harmony. The alleged DL rumors that follow her dating life, and remember, alleged is doing all the heavy lifting in that sentence, are now a permanent fixture of her coverage. And true or not, the point is what it costs her. Every relationship scandal eats a news cycle that a single could have owned. Every messy breakup becomes the excuse for another delay. The chaos isn't adjacent to the career anymore. The chaos is the career. Now let's go deeper into the money, because the money tells the story the social media posts won't. Touring is where modern artists actually earn. Streaming pays in pennies, but the road pays in real dollars. Cardi B reportedly collected significant money for tour commitments, and fans stacked their own money on top. Flights, hotels, outfits, VIP packages, the whole pilgrimage. When those dates evaporated, the artist kept her lifestyle and the fans kept their receipts. And there is no customer service department for a broken promise from a superstar. You don't get a refund on belief. That's the debt that never shows up on a balance sheet, but always shows up in the comment section. And it's compounding. And here's the part that should genuinely worry anyone still invested in her future. The industry has a very specific way it handles artists in this exact position. First, the budget shrinks quietly. Then the big-name producers stop returning calls quickly. Then the features get cheaper. Then the brand deals start including performance clauses. Then the label starts having conversations about restructuring the relationship. By the time the public hears the word dropped, the decision is already 18 months old. And if even half the whispers about shrinking budgets are accurate, Cardi B may already be several steps down a staircase she can't see because she's too busy arguing with the people holding the flashlight. Let me paint the contrast one more way, because it matters. There are artists right now, hungry artists, Artists with a fraction of Cardi B's platform, who would trade a limb for 1/10 of her reach. Artists recording in closets, funding their own videos, treating every fan like a board member because they understand the assignment. And then there's Cardi B, sitting on one of the most valuable names in music, treating studio time like jury duty and fan questions like personal attacks. The tragedy isn't that she's falling. It's that every problem she has is fixable with work, and work is the one thing she keeps publicly refusing to do. And can we talk about the tone of the rant itself for a moment? Because the tone is data. This wasn't sadness. This wasn't a woman vulnerably explaining a hard season. This was contempt. The specific flavor of contempt that comes from someone who believes the ask is beneath them. When Cardi B told fans she didn't want to record for them, the subtext wasn't, "I'm hurting." The subtext was, "How dare you expect the thing I sold you?" And fans felt that. In their bones they felt it. Because humans are wired to detect contempt faster than almost any other emotion. You can survive being disliked. You cannot survive being resented by your own customer base. Resentment doesn't argue with you. It leaves quietly and never comes back. And quiet departures end careers, because by the time you notice the silence, it has already moved on to somebody else. Now, is there a version of this story where Cardi B turns it around? Sure. There's always a version. One great album solves almost everything in this business. The public's memory is short when the music is good. A tight 12-track project, a genuine apology that doesn't sound like a hostage video, 6 months of visible work ethic, and the narrative flips to the comeback. It has happened to bigger names with worse scandals. But here's why the smart money isn't betting on it. The turnaround requires the one ingredient Cardi B keeps demonstrating she doesn't currently have: humility. She would have to admit the fans were right. She would have to admit the delays were choices. She would have to walk back years of "the album is coming" and replace it with "the album was never coming because I didn't feel like making it." And nothing in her entire public history suggests that sentence exists anywhere inside her. So instead, we get the cycle. Rant, excuse, quiet, stunt, repeat. Rant, excuse, quiet, stunt, repeat. And each rotation of the cycle costs a little more goodwill than the last, because the audience is not starting from zero anymore. They're starting from memory. Every new outburst is judged against all the previous ones. Every new promise is discounted by all the broken ones. That's how credibility debt works. It compounds silently until one ordinary Tuesday, a rant that would have blown over in 2019 becomes the story of the week in 2026, and everyone pretends they're surprised. Nobody should be surprised. This was on the calendar. It was always on the calendar. Let's zoom out for a second and look at what the wider internet is actually saying, because the consensus forming right now is bigger than one fanbase's feelings. The take spreading across platforms is simple and devastating. The people are tired. Tired of the same cadence on every record. Tired of the rollout by controversy strategy. Tired of being told an era is beginning when nothing ever begins. And here's the thing about audience fatigue. It doesn't announce itself. Streams don't crash overnight. They erode. A few thousand listeners don't press play this week. A few thousand more next month. And the decline only becomes visible in hindsight. What happened is now. What happened is this. Fatigue is the tax on broken promises. And Cardi B has been writing checks against goodwill for years. And notice something else. The cultural weather has changed around her. There was a time when her chaos read as authentic, as the girl from the Bronx keeping it real against a polished industry. That framing protected her for a long time. But the same behavior reads completely differently once the audience suspects it's strategic. Authentic chaos is endearing. Scheduled chaos is insulting. And once the public flips from believing the first to suspecting the second, every outburst stops being a moment and starts being evidence. That flip appears to be happening right now, in real time, in front of all of us. The most telling detail in this entire saga might be the smallest one. After the rant, after the breakup excuse, after telling fans she doesn't want to record for them, the response from the general public was an outrage. It was a shrug, and the shrug is the death sentence. Outrage means people are still emotionally invested in your choices. A shrug means they've filed you under predictable. Nicki Minaj trends when she breathes because the audience believes something might happen. Cardi B ranted at her own fans, and the internet responded with, "Of course she did." When your worst behavior stops being news, you are no longer a star having a scandal. You are a pattern completing itself. Now, some people will watch all of this and say it's just hate, just blogs farming engagement, just the internet doing what the internet does to successful women. And that critique deserves an honest answer. So here it is. Criticism of output is not criticism of existence. Nobody is saying Cardi B shouldn't be famous, shouldn't be rich, shouldn't be happy. People are saying she sold a product she hasn't delivered, collected the money anyway, and insulted the customers for asking about the order. That same standard would apply to a plumber. It applies to a pop star. Fame does not come with a waiver on follow-through, and the fans asking, "Where is the album?" are not haters. They are her most loyal customers, and she just told them their loyalty is an annoyance. And that's really the whole story in one sentence, isn't it? Cardi B didn't lose the public because of a rival, or a breakup, or a lawsuit, or a budget. She is losing the public because, somewhere along the way, the relationship inverted. The fans were supposed to serve her mood, instead of her serving the fans' trust. Every empire in entertainment history that collapsed started with that exact inversion. The audience will forgive arrogance, scandal, even silence. What the audience never forgives is being treated as an obstacle by the person they made. Read the history books. The names change. The ending doesn't. But wait, there's one more layer nobody wants to touch, and it might be the most important one. What happens to an artist whose entire brand was built on being the people's champion when the people stopped championing? Her origin story was the product. The stripper turned superstar, the underdog who outworked the gatekeepers, the regular girl who said what everybody was thinking. That story was bulletproof because it positioned her as one of us. But you cannot be one of us while telling us you don't want to work for us. Those two identities cancel each other out. And when the origin story dies, what's left is just a celebrity with obligations she finds irritating, and the market is flooded with those. So where does this actually end? Let's walk the paths honestly. Path 1. The album drops. It's genuinely great. The apology lands. And we're all here in a year talking about the greatest comeback in rap history. Possible. Unlikely. Path 2. The album drops. It's mid, and the polite silence that follows tells her everything the rant couldn't. Path 3. And this is the one the smart observers are quietly predicting. There is no album. There are only more rants, more stunts, more reality TV-ready moments, until one day the label announces an amicable parting of ways, and Cardi B transitions fully into being a personality who was once a rapper. Television, brand deals, influencer money. A soft landing, maybe, but a landing, not a flight. And here's the prophecy I'll leave on the table, time-stamped, so you can come back and check it. The next 6 months will tell us everything. Watch for 3 signals. 1. Does a real single with a real push appear, or just another remix favor? 2. Does she address the fans with accountability, or with another excuse wrapped in attitude? 3. Does the rivalry reignite? Because if she suddenly has a lot to say about Nicki Minaj again after all this silence, you'll know how worried the camp really is. A desperate artist reaches for the rivalry the way a drowning swimmer reaches for anything that floats. If that feud mysteriously comes back to life this fall, don't read it as drama. Read it as a distress flare. Because that's the real story underneath all of this week's noise. Not the rant. Not the cursing. Not even the breakup excuse. The real story is that Cardi B is standing at the exact crossroads every manufactured or not superstar eventually faces. The moment where the hype runs out and only the work remains. And everything we watched this week, the contempt, the deflection, the blame pointed at the people holding her up, suggests she is not ready to do the work. She wants the crown without the grind, the love without the labor. And baby, the industry has a graveyard full of people who wanted exactly that. So now it's your turn, because I genuinely want to hear where y'all land on this. Was the rant justified exhaustion from a woman under impossible pressure? Or was it the moment Cardi B showed her fans exactly what she thinks of them? And the bigger question, is there anything, any album, any apology, any reinvention, that could actually bring the Bardi Gang's faith back at this point? Or did that door close for good this week? Drop your take in the comments, and don't just say she'll be fine. Tell me specifically what the comeback even looks like, because I've been asking that question all week and nobody, not even her loudest defenders, has been able to answer it. And if you think this situation is wild, wait until you see what's quietly happening on the other side of this rivalry. Because while all of this was unfolding, some very interesting moves were being made in complete silence, and the contrast between the two approaches is a masterclass in how careers are actually built versus how they burn. That's a whole other conversation, and you're going to want to be here for it. Hit subscribe, tap the bell, and I'll see you in the next one, because something tells me this story is nowhere near finished, and when the next chapter drops, we'll be right here reading it together. Stay respectful in the comments, keep it cute, and remember, we discuss the moves, not the people. Until next time. And since we're being thorough, let's examine the breakup excuse under the microscope it deserves, because it collapses the moment you apply even gentle pressure to it. Every artist in history has recorded through heartbreak. Heartbreak is practically a genre of its own. Adele built a mansion on it. Marvin Gaye turned a divorce into a masterpiece. The greats don't cancel the studio when love goes wrong. They sprint toward it. because pain is the cheapest riding fuel on the planet. So when Cardi B offers a breakup as the reason the booth stayed empty, she's revealing that she doesn't experience her own life as material anymore. And an artist who can't convert their life into art is an artist who has quietly retired without filing the paperwork. Now, some of you are already typing that it's different for her, that she has children, that motherhood changes everything. And it does. Nobody is grading her against a childless artist's schedule. But let's keep the ledger honest. Cardi B chose every element of her current load. She chose the pregnancies, and before anyone twists that, her body, her choice, fully supported, full stop. She chose the business ventures. She chose the club appearances. She chose the social media wars. And then she chose to sell tour tickets and album promises on top of all of it. You don't get to pile your own plate and scream at the waiter for bringing the food. The fans didn't assign her this life. They just believed her when she said she could carry it. And here's a question that deserves to be asked out loud, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Where's the team in all of this? Because a rant like the one we just watched does not happen in a functioning machine. Somewhere there is a manager, a publicist, a whole payroll of professionals whose entire job is to stand between Cardi B and the camera when she's about to press record on her own reputation. Either they tried to stop her and she overruled them, which tells you who actually runs that empire, or they didn't try at all, which tells you something even sadder, that the people around her have stopped protecting the brand because deep down they've stopped believing in it too. A star melting down publicly is a personnel story as much as a personal one. Somebody got paid to prevent exactly what happened, and it happened anyway. Let me also address the counter-narrative forming in her defense, because fairness matters even in commentary. The defense goes like this. Female rappers get scrutinized harder, held to standards male artists never face, punished for the same chaos men get celebrated for. And there is real truth in that. The double standard in hip-hop is documented and ugly. But notice what the defense carefully avoids. The male artists who act like this also fall off. The graveyard doesn't check gender. The guys who cursed out their fans, skipped their sessions, and lived off controversy are in the same dirt as everybody else who tried it. Accountability is not misogyny just because the person being held accountable is a woman, and the fans she cursed out include thousands of women who spent their own paychecks on her promises. Their disappointment is not sexism. It's a refund request. Which brings us to the most underreported angle of this entire week. What this moment means for every artist watching from the sidelines. Because make no mistake, they are all watching. Every hungry vocalist with 50,000 followers and a dream is studying her trajectory like a cautionary flight recorder. The lesson being written in real time is not don't get famous. The lesson is that fame is a loan, not a gift, and the repayment schedule is work. Consistent, unglamorous, camera-off work. The artists who understand that are quietly building careers right now in bedrooms and basement studios, and in 5 years some of them will be standing where Cardi B stood, and they will point to this exact week as the moment they learned what not to do. That might end up being her most lasting contribution to the culture. Not the music she didn't make, but the warning she became. And if you really want to understand how we got here, you have to rewind past the rant, past the delays, all the way back to the architecture of the career itself. Because the uncomfortable truth industry people share privately is that Cardi B was always a better personality than a craftsman. That's not an insult, it's a diagnosis. The charisma was real. The instinct for a moment was real. But charisma is the spark, not the engine. The engine is discipline. The engine is the boring, unglamorous repetition that happens when nobody is watching and nobody is clapping. And for 10 years, the culture was so entertained by the spark that nobody asked to see the engine. Well, they're asking now. The fans are asking now. And the answer, a curse-out video and a breakup excuse, is telling everybody exactly what was under the hood this whole time. Look at the touring question alone. Because touring is the ultimate lie detector for an artist's work ethic. The road is brutal, months of sleep deprivation, vocal strain, and performing the same set until your body does it on autopilot. Every legacy act you can name earned their status out there, in the half-empty early shows, in the years where the only payment was endurance. When fans bought those Cardi B tour tickets, they weren't just buying a show. They were buying a declaration. I'm the kind of artist who tours. And when the dates dissolved into nothing, the declaration dissolved with them. What replaced it was soon and trust me. And trust, once converted into ticket revenue and never repaid in performances, stops being trust. It becomes evidence. And let's be very precise about what the fans are actually grieving, because it's not what the headlines say. They're not grieving an album. Albums get delayed all the time and fanbases survive it. Some fanbases wait a decade between projects and stay loyal, because the artist communicates like a partner. What the Bardi Gang is grieving is the discovery of where they rank. Every fan already suspected they ranked below the businesses, below the clubs, below the relationships. What they learned this week, in Cardi B's own voice, is that they're below her comfort. Recording for them wasn't just low on the list. It was framed as an imposition she wanted no part of. There is no PR strategy on earth that unrings that bell. You can apologize for an insult. You cannot apologize for a priority list you said out loud. There's a broader industry context here too, and it's worth naming because it explains why the label patience is reportedly evaporating now and not 2 years ago. The music business is in a correction. The era of unlimited budgets sprayed at anyone with a viral moment is over. Labels got burned too many times, streaming economics tightened, and the suits started demanding the one thing they'd stopped demanding during the hype years: return on investment. In that climate, an artist who delivers product on schedule is golden, and an artist who delivers excuses is a line item waiting to be cut. She had the luck of peaking during the loose money era and the misfortune of her work stoppage colliding with the tight money era. 2 years earlier, the label absorbs the delays with a smile. Today, every quarter without a deliverable is a meeting she's not invited to. So when you stack it all, the cursed out fans, the vanished tour, the eternally imminent album, the cooling features, the shrinking budget whispers, the silent rivalry that used to keep her name warm, and a public that now responds to her meltdowns with a shrug, the picture is not confusing at all. It's one of the clearest career trajectories in modern music. A star built on momentum discovered that momentum requires motion, stopped moving, and is now angry at the audience for noticing she stopped. The rant wasn't an aberration. It was the most honest press release she has ever issued. She doesn't want to do this anymore. She just wants what this used to pay. And the saddest part? The fans would have forgiven the truth. They will never forgive